Mom Live. I'm Jen Eggert of Lakikid.com and the host of Ask an Autism Mom, where you can join us every Thursday live on Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern to meet other parents, share your insights, and learn tricks and tips. But first, I can't wait to talk about this new topic this month of advocacy and what it means and how we deal with it. But first, a quick video from our sponsor. We are giving away this month the coronavirus, what is the coronavirus story, social story. So what it is it's a PDF file that you print. So anyone can get it simply by going to the chat section now and typing the word ebook. If you type ebook, we will send you in Messenger the coronavirus social story. At the end of the social story, it has a place where you can mark in your own answers, like how you're going to stay safe or when we go back to school and information such as that. So we do have the What is the Coronavirus ebook. All you have to do again is type ebook in the chat section now. Okay, so hi Melinda, welcome to today's show. Today, I'm talking with Dennis Barker again. Welcome back, Dennis.
Hi, Dennis Baker.
Baker, sorry.
It's okay. It's a little easier than Bridget's name, but
it is.
Last week, but.
So as you know, this month we are tag teaming between Dennis and Bridget. We were supposed to have them together, but unfortunately, coronavirus hit and they're going to switch in and off for weeks. And tonight is Dennis again. Now, Dennis, tonight I really want to get into being an advocate in public. Now, there's so much stress when you go out in public, and there's so much noise and action, and we all know that to be triggers. So how do I deal with the stares and the nasty responses I get from other people?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, but I mean, I think everything is a case-by-case situation. So are they nasty comments overheard? Are there nasty comments made directly to you? I think all these things need to be judged, because when you're going out in public, when you're going out with your family, you want to have a good time. You want to get away, get out of the house, have a fun time. So how much do you want to spend dealing with things that aren't, directly towards that goal? Right. I think if the comments are directed towards you, I would think you have just an obligation as a human to address it in some way. When I say address it, I don't mean confrontation. Even just, those comments are hurtful to me and my family. We don't appreciate that. We're trying to have, a good time and just get out of the house. So if those things are directed at you personally, I don't see a way that you couldn't address it, at least
and there's also taking it as a teaching moment.
And one of the things that I am going to talk about with your questions later is there's teaching moments for other people, which I think, unfortunately, are pretty difficult in the limited interaction we would have with them in that amount of time or that space. However, the teaching moment with your family and with your child, ever since, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old daughter, and I've become really conscious, or tried to be conscious, of how I react in situations and the example that I'm setting for them, how I react when I'm frustrated. So I think there are lots of teaching moments that you can use for your own family. Ultimately, would we love to teach other people to be open-minded? Of course. Somebody who, I think the type of person that would make a nasty comment or stare at a child clearly having a meltdown or clearly experiencing something, due to a disability, I don't think that person is open-minded enough to make, them see your perspective in that setting.
Right.
So again, you could use that teaching moment with your family. And let's see, I know it, so maybe you're outside of the house and it seems probably like a dream right now, but I do believe it will happen. We'll all get out again and, you'll be at the zoo or the park. And if you hear things, that maybe aren't directed at you and you think it'll take your attention away from your family, maybe those things are best just to let go and to move on your day. I kind of was thinking about it today, and it's kind of a little online analogy. I'm on Twitter a lot. I think we all are on Facebook, and you see a lot of opinions and a lot of things that you'd like to talk back at or just try to debate. But sometimes in the end, no good really comes of it in that moment. And the only thing you're losing is patience and time with your family and maybe that clear headspace that you were looking for. So it really depends. Sometimes it might be better to let things go. Sometimes it might be better to address it. I will say this: if it's a situation where you do find yourself angry or getting emotional, and we kind of like at that IEP meeting, I would suggest a cooling off period before trying to get into an interaction. I've been guilty of this. I think we probably all have. Somebody says something, and just whether it's to my children or whatever, I react in an emotional way, and then 10 minutes later I've cooled down, and God, I think there was a better way to do what I did, rather than whether it's snapping or so I do think that cool down period, if you do find those emotions rising, is, I don't think anybody benefits from a confrontation in public with adults, screaming. So I think knowing yourself, knowing the situation you're in, I think all those play a factor.
I just want to say something along this lines, and that actually brings lightness to such a difficult time. I was scrolling through Facebook today, and I actually saw a post where the mother of an autistic child was stopped by police because a woman of her description in her car with her license plate number was seen driving around the neighborhood slowly multiple times a day. And the police stopped her, and she explained to the police, she goes, my child's autistic, and the only thing that's keeping them going right now is Pokemon Go. So we drive around and play. And then the next day, she woke up to a package on her doorstep, and it was a Pokemon cake, and it was, I'm sorry, from the neighbors who called the cops.
Oh, that's so nice. That's really nice.
I mean, even simply in her case, she just said, sorry, we have autism.
Right. And I think the fact that you're dealing with a policeman or someone like a fireman, you would hope that those types of service providers, those heroes, would be open-minded. And I think they are. I think talking to those people, I would feel better than having to, maybe you see a parent coming up to you, or what are you doing driving around the neighborhood?
Right.
But that is a nice, I've just on a little side note, the police and the firemen in my town have been so great with driving around and celebrating kids' birthdays with their fire lights on and the sirens. And that's also been a nice heartwarming thing.
It has. I don't know if where you guys live, we have the teacher parades.
We had a virtual teacher parade. Our kids sent in pictures and letters, and they kind of made a big, but I have heard of the teacher parade. Actually, my 7-year-old daughter's teacher just emailed us and said, I saw you walking by our house yesterday. We didn't know she lived there. So now we can stand out front with the homework and show her all the things that we're doing.
Use the window as a glass, and she'll use a dry erase marker to show her the answers.
It's perfect. We can just keep teaching right as nothing happened all along.
But see, folks, we're talking about something else, but we're also advocating for our children, because in that we're talking about their needs, making sure they're being met. I mean,
and those things, like, our main, as an advocate, most of the time I deal with the needs that are in the school and within the classroom, but having children of my own now and meeting other families who are different, working with other families who are unlike my own, I just see the need for advocating, across the board in all situations.
And I think right now, the whole world's up in the air. I mean, nobody knows what's going on. So right now, we can kind of hide in our little bubble and be like, oh, no one's coming in my bubble, so I don't have to worry about it. But it's more than just saying and doing. It's, Dennis, it's a way of life almost.
Right. And the only way, and it's like in school, you have to, skills learned in isolation stay in isolation. So we can talk about these things and this is a good time for it. But getting out there and applying what we've talked about, and kind of it's trial and error too. There's no one right answer for everybody. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses about dealing with challenges and things. So I think it's not only for the kids but for the adults, just getting out and experiencing different situations and trying to apply. And hey, this worked this time, this didn't work last time, and trying to devise a plan for that.
I've actually seen a special education teacher who is coming up with some of the wackiest ways to get her kids to work, but it's working. She has one that loves water. So they literally put him, seal it in one of those plastic sheet protectors, and put him in the bathtub with the paper and the markers, and he writes the answers, and then they
That's
record
great.
it.
And that could never be done in school.
No, because he's in the tub. He's happy.
Yeah. So it's nice to see some of the creative things that teachers and schools are doing. I know everybody, is trying to make the best of a tough situation. And I think sometimes those situations, end up in successes, like something like that, that we
And
just heard.
I mean, right now we can still advocate. Just this week, I had to deal with Riley's teacher because she's not keeping up with the work. She can't. She's an AB honor roll student, but doing it this way is so different. Everything is not the way it should be. She doesn't have her desk. She doesn't have what she has built for years.
Right. What's known to her.
And I know you're watching, Riley. I see you're writing, "Hi, Mommy." But we've had to discuss other ways of changing things. And like I was telling Dennis, we worked out with the teacher today. I went to the dollar store and bought a bunch of random things.
Yeah.
And she actually is going to let me use things like we have grow a crystals thing, but she's going to let her use some of those to augment her grades because she knows she's stronger than that.
Right. And that's, I think, the best type of teacher to have. What are we doing now when we're at home? Am I just trying to force kids to do work for a grade, or can we try to enrich them in, other ways?
Well, and another thing I love is the school has taken a total step back and they're re-looking at the way they are teaching. So maybe there will become a change when we do go back.
I think so. I think everybody's going to look at some of the successes that have happened, that have been, just from this, and maybe reevaluate where we are. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think there is some good. It might be hard to see now, but I think there is some good that, could eventually come of this.
I mean, I've even heard some schools are looking into bringing back, I know my son's in construction, but home ec.
Right. And for years, when I was a high school teacher, I was alarmed at the lack of opportunities for home ec and, wood shop, carpentry, things like that. I taught in a fairly affluent town that was very much geared towards AP and honors. Yep. And there were so many things that I thought were practical and useful that the kids weren't getting. So if, after this, those things come back, I think that's only a good thing for everybody.
And one of the fun things Riley's project was last week was she had to pick 4 life skills out of this huge list they gave. And she had to do them, and then she had to write what they were, what she thought it would be like, and what it was like. But they're encouraging life skills. I mean, folks, I'm always going to say, if you have a child with special needs, you need to make sure those life skills are down. Because an education will not help a child who does not have sufficient life skills.
Right. I mean, those life skills are the base.
Go, oh my gosh, no, that's not true. But Dennis, let's look at the basic facts.
I mean, if you don't have those types of everyday life skills, and those are, executive functioning type things that do impact children in the classroom, but just think about all the things in day-to-day life where it will impact them. So, I agree. Getting that foundation of day-to-day skills, without those, it'll be hard for them to be truly independent and, achieve what they're capable of.
And I mean, last 2 nights I've loved it. My 16-year-old calls to me from the kitchen, "Now what, Mom?" And he does it himself.
Oh, that's great. I hope those days are coming. I hope for me. So
I don't
all
know. He's 16,
16-year-old,
so he might have a while.
I think we do, but it's good. I'm all 16-year-olds must be the same way. I can only imagine. So,
Well, we've decided. I lived in a dorm for 2 years, so I decided I didn't want to son like half the guys in the dorms
yes,
because they couldn't cook or do anything. So
right. As a
I'm
dorm
down.
guy too, I can see why you wouldn't want that, and definitely, I can appreciate that.
Now I want to talk about, and I know this isn't in our notes, Dennis, but I kind of feel drawn to pulling this together right now because of the current situation. If we talk to our teachers and work with our teachers right now, like I'm doing with Riley's teacher, saying this isn't working, the more you work with your teacher now, I'm finding she's saying, well, when we come back or the next teacher, we'll talk to them about this. So right now, it doesn't seem like I'm advocating, but just in talking to her.
Everything, right? That's advocating everything. And one of the things I talked about the last time I was on was communication. The communication in our business is so key. It's between the advocate and the parent and the school and the advocate, communicating with the child. So, having those lines of communication is really the basis of a solid relationship. So being able to do those things now, which I think more people are being forced to, I think parents, a lot of the parents I've dealt with, and I think you're communicating probably fairly regularly, but I think there are other parents who are now, reaching out for a little more help and guidance and assistance, which should in turn make, hopefully that they can carry that over to when they go back to school and keep the same level of interest. Because it's so different. You send your kid to school and you don't know what they're doing, but you seeing it at home day to day, and maybe some of the struggles too. You might not know what they really struggle with in school, or you can be told what they struggle with, and then seeing it in person when you're trying to deal with it just puts it in a whole new light. So I think that's helpful for parents too. So yeah, I do. I think that's a great little, offshoot of what we were talking about.
And I'm not saying this just for my Riley, but even for my neurotypical kid, I am on top of things. I'm making sure he's set up for this year, for next year.
Right. And you have to be. And it's funny. One of my friends who is a teacher who watched us last week said that the point about emailing the teacher, I talked about just sending an introductory email right away. Hey, this is who I am. And this is, I'm kind of going to be here all year. He is a 7th grade history teacher and said that is, he even highly advises that. It makes a big difference.
Having a picture and making sure they refer to the child by name, not he, not she.
Right. And I know Bridget last week, I was watching her and she kind of showed her sons, we talked about our binder, and I believe her son let her, show the picture of his. And that is just, it's just that human, this is not he, it's not a statistic, it's not the 35th student on an IEP in this class. It's Joey, it's, Sally, it's a real person behind it.
And folks, don't worry if you didn't get your questions asked on IEPs. We're actually coming back to IEPs next week with Bridget. I wanted to say that before I forget. Now, Dennis, should I automatically leave a public situation if people leave when they see us or make nasty comments?
I would say I never like to tell people, what they should or shouldn't do, but I think just leaving right away probably isn't the best thing. Of course, depending on the severity and what happens, but I look at it as the example I'm setting. The other day I was frustrated and I was mad about kids not doing work, and I kind of stormed off and went on a walk by myself. And 20 yards into the walk, I said, what am I doing? My daughter just saw me deal with a frustrating situation by bolting. So I turned around and came back and talked it out with her. So I'm cautious of the example that we're setting for our kids. If now I would never tell somebody, as the parent, best. How you can react to things. You could also know what could set your child off. Maybe your child saw something or heard something or what for whatever reason, is now in a headspace where it's going to take them a while to get out of.
And it
Maybe.
could also be something as simple as it takes them longer to white up.
Right. Oh, right. Definitely. And I'm sure, and I've been fortunate, to not have, I haven't really experienced that. So I can imagine, it must be difficult when eyes are on you and people are making comments. But I think, the thing I will say is that you have every right to be in that space as the person who is pretty much a jerk and inconsiderate. So to leave, I think there's no reason that you can't, if anything, I think that person should leave, but that would never, that's not going to happen. But if the situation calls for it, I wouldn't feel bad about seeking an employee's help or a manager. And again, this is all hypothetical. I don't know what the situation is, but maybe rather than leave, you can try to find somebody who can help you, whether an employee or a manager. I find that these businesses who are in the money-making business would probably want to give you a positive experience and not have you storm out and then tell 5 people, well, geez, that place is the worst. I'm never bringing my kid back there. So I think there are other options than just leaving, but that might be an option, given the situation, if a parent thinks is best.
Now, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to jump to the questions in the group chat. My
Okay.
last question for you is, should we talk to places to work on things like making them easier for special needs families? More sensory friendly, more. I mean, look, I want people to look at the fact that we use wheelchair accessible washrooms because I have to have her with me.
Right.
So should
Right.
we advocate to places about making their businesses more friendly?
I think absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like we talked about communication in school amongst teachers, that applies outside the home too. That can apply to places that you frequent, businesses. You can reach out if maybe it's some place you've never been before. You can reach out and call and ask what types of resources or accommodations they have for students, that fit your child's profile. Also, I wouldn't be afraid to reach out after visiting a place. If you have gone there and, like I said, these places are in the business of making money. If you, present them, hey, this was my experience there, and I was just wanted you to see it from my point of view, and this is what my child needed, and he's certainly not, or she is certainly not the only one, with this disability. So I think just an open dialogue. I think it's hard for places to change. I always like to think that places that aren't as, accommodating, that doesn't come from a place of malice. It's just maybe they don't know, or maybe they haven't been exposed. So I think having that conversation and even letting them know what you saw, or how your experience could have been better, I think those things are helpful. And one of the things I had seen, there's a gigantic place near my house. It's a trampoline, amusement. It's just 4 floors of madness. It's utter insanity. It's loud and there's lights. And so I saw the sign, and the sign says, hey, every Sundays was sensory night. And I said, oh, geez, that's a good thing. And, I'm thinking, and then I had a conversation with somebody, and they said, well, what if that family can't go on Sunday? The family with a child who needs those types of things. I said, wow, I never really thought of that. That's a good point. So something like that, you could call this facility and say, hey, we love your venue. We love your whatever it is. We can't make it on the night that you've designated for sensory night. What types of things do you do at that night that could carry over into every other night? Because I think the goal is for not to have just the sensory kids go on Sundays from 3 to 8. They need to be given the chance to go, at the same time of everybody else. So I think talking and having an open dialogue, not like complaining to a place. It's all, there's a way of going about it, not coming in guns blazing, but just having a conversation with the manager. I've worked at places where I know for a fact that managers would want to hear those types of things from customers. So I think, yes, reaching out and having conversations is definitely a good thing.
Okay, I have some questions from our comment section.
Oh,
Jessica says, I try my best to get my son to be more independent with life skills at a time. Right now, he knows how to get his own drink, clean up, make his bed, get dressed himself, and we are always on top of his routine the best way we can. He hasn't always been easy, but he is doing great now that he is getting older. Still has his off days a lot, especially with all this going on. And we're going to have our off days, and we're going to see more meltdowns. We're going to see more bad days.
I think that's inevitable because we're just seeing more of our kids than any time. You think of how much time they spend at school during the week. It's as much or more than they spend with us, depending on how we are with work and when we're home. So I think you are going to see more meltdowns. You're going to see more parent meltdowns. I have had a meltdown or two of my own. The key is just that my wife and I alternate meltdowns. You know, if we're both not melting down at the same time, it's okay. If there's somebody in a good, clear frame of mind.
As long as one person's the designated sane.
Exactly. Yeah, the designated sane person. Yeah, that you just invented a new term.
Hey, in this day and time.
Yeah, I think they'll. Yeah, I think these times necessitate, invention but yeah, you are going to see bad days and you're going to see good days, and I'm sure it's just going to seem overwhelming. But use therapists, and I know schools right now it's a tough spot, but if you have community resources, groups. I know in Massachusetts there's different groups, but again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just don't feel like it's you alone. There's a million people in the same situation. So reach out to groups and community therapists. I think having good dialogue with the therapist is key during this time too, especially, because kids are dealing in an unprecedented situation.
Right. Angela White says it's an opportunity to educate. Angela's huge into educating when her child's needs are not met, what they are, and how to give them. Ingrid says a legally blind friend went to a pharmacy and could not see the clear plastic bags.
I know Ingrid. She is one of the people I work with, and she is, we're part of the crew of Bridget and myself. So
But Ingrid, I think you're correct. I think there should be, in her situation, some way to give her a darker bag or a cloth bag that she could see.
Right. And and like I said, I don't think the store was trying to exclude anybody. They just didn't know. There was actually a few years ago, there was a Monday Night Football game where they did these fancy crazy color uniforms. And I believe they were green and red entirely. Yes. And the people and the colorblind they said they had a real problem. And there was all sorts of talk the next day. And the networks were like, oh, geez, we didn't even think of that. It's a really good point. So again, I think a lot of these things are just people not having come across that situation.
Riley, Julie, please stop sharing the video all over the place. I'm getting notifications that you are. Jason brings up a good point that we've been discussing between ourselves lately. Sensory friendly versus sensory inclusive.
And, and that's something that was actually brought to my attention, with Jason, when I was talking, was looking at culture, the Culture City sensory inclusive programs. And I think that's, that's, I think clearly the goal, to have this be an inclusive, much like inclusion in the classroom it's just become what is, but 20 years ago.
And I refer to it as friendly is, let's just talk about it and see what happens. Where inclusive is they put everything they can into it to make it an environment for everyone.
Oh, I think that's a great answer. Definitely. Right on the money.
Jessica says, I so agree. Certain public places should be open to all needs, but also it's hard with this subject too. Not all places are special needs friendly, but we can also call before and after. And that's a very good point, guys. Call them, talk to these places, explain what worked and what didn't work. And, they won't
Right.
know how to tweak their sensory friendly or sensory inclusive events if we, the parents, don't tell them, hey, your light
Right.
didn't work right.
Right. And the parents are the experts. I mean, the people who are running these facilities again, I'm sure they don't have as much experience or just exposure to what challenges. And again, these businesses, I would assume they want your money. So I think having conversations with them, I think they would be open to it, because now there's a whole new, market of people who can come and spend a bunch of money on fun games and stuff for make their kids crazy.
I want to get into Angela uses an app that I've never heard of. Be My Eyes.
I've never
It's
heard
great
of
for
that.
everywhere to be accessible, but it's a nice way to help the visually impaired. So it must be an app. Angela, is this an app for blind people to help them? If you could explain a little more. Dennis, I'll get more information on this and send it to you, because I
Okay.
know that would be something that you would.
Absolutely. I love, we all love information, and these are the types of things that happen just with conversations. So I'm using this app, or I had never heard of that one before. And it's, again, communication, I think, is such a basis of what this whole thing is.
Exactly. Jessica, yeah, meltdowns are hard on both us and the kids. And it is helpful, like Ingrid said, for the children to see us meltdown, because they can realize they're not perfect. We're not perfect. Today I
Right.
had a discussion with a friend. Her son is 18 months old, 19 months old, and he slept all night for the first time. And everyone's like, oh, he's supposed to. And she was feeling kind of upset. I said, wait a minute. How many times a night do you wake up to get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever? She goes, 3 or 4. I'm like, how many times a night does he wake up? She goes, 2, maybe 3. I said, put it in context of when you get up. You don't expect your son to do anything you can't do. Look at it this way.
Right.
I think just changing your mindset slightly.
Right. And to hear things like, or there's no should, or, obviously there are benchmarks and, things they judge by, but everybody, every situation is different. So to even have somebody say that, I just think those words are just,
I know.
I don't like them.
Yes, Dennis and I were talking about it. We have partnered up with Culture City's Sensory Inclusive program. It is HTTPS. Right there on the screen. Thank you, Jason. You can check out Culture City. They are working on making every place sensory inclusive, not friendly. They want it to be a whole sensory experience for your child in a positive manner. Ingrid says hi. Jessica says thank you. Riley, thank you for listening to Mommy. I love you too. Bridget has a really good point. When we know better, we do better.
Oh, absolutely. And the more that and sometimes it's up for us or parents, or, parents as advocates, to try to help those people know more. So the more that everybody knows, the better off that we will all be.
Now I have Jason posted, Be My Eyes is a free app that connects blind and low vision people with sighted volunteers and company representatives for visual assistance throughout a live video call. Very interesting.
That's great.
And Angela was agreeing with Jason's answer.
Okay, good. That's great. I had never heard of that, and I know we love
That's
hearing you.
interesting for you to kind of put in your little notebook, and because you never know when you have.
Yeah, I have a notes page on my phone here with, when I'm with Bridget and Ingrid, and I see Vivian in the room, we're always just exchanging ideas. I have like 2 pages of notes about apps and podcasts and things that we just share, and I always like to just write down.
But I think right here, right now, what we're doing is the biggest part of advocating we can do for our children, talking to each other, saying, hey, what do you use for your child?
Right.
What works for you? What doesn't? You know, our girls are almost the same age.
Right. Just reaching out, making connections with other people in similar situations. And I think everybody benefits from that.
Now, I want to talk to you guys all about a free app we talked about a while back. I have been using it with Riley, and I really love it. Dennis, you may want to check out this app. It is a Sesame Street app. I got it at the App Store. I have, I don't know, an S20, so I have an Android. But it is called Breathe. And what it does is it talks you through scenarios where something bad happens, and then you have the chance to stop, think, and breathe. So it'll talk you through the entire stressful situation. And in doing it so many times, like it's a game, it ingrains in their head that it is, it just, she does it now naturally more.
Right. And that's, I mean, it's just like practice. I mean, if you're a baseball player, you take, you have to practice the things that you're going to use during a game, or else you're never going to be able to do it when it really matters. So again, yeah, practicing those things, the repetition of the children seeing, and sometimes it takes a while for them before it really clicks and it becomes intrinsic in them. So I definitely think those things to expose them are super helpful.
Bridget and Ingrid said community. I always joke and say that my people are my tribe. They're what hold me up when I can't do it no more. And Riley is agreeing that the app Breathe is rated by her and it helps her.
Oh, good. That's a great endorsement from an
Thank you, Riley, for the
Thank you, Riley.
Comment.
Thank you.
As you see, homeschooling is going awesome. That's a good sentence.
Hey, that's great. As far as I know, in this 30 minutes, you're doing a bang up job over there. So
Bridget says, I love that parents are building better relationships with school staff during these times of distance learning. And I love it too, because I think that's going to be a really huge key to next year when we sit down for IEPs, when we sit down for meetings, because our teachers are going to be more open-minded. We did this, and this while we had to.
Right.
We can't necessarily do it that way in the classroom, but we can do this.
And like we said before, I think I was trying to think of necessity is the mother of all invention. And, these times that we're in now, just we have to approach things a little differently. And maybe it's going to lead to some new techniques or some new things when we all finally get back to school in the fall, hopefully.
I agree. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Dennis, thank you for joining me again.
You're welcome.
Had fun. Riley, thank you for using your manners.
Thanks for your help, Riley.
Right way, Riley. Good job. But see, folks, I'm homeschooling and I'm working at the same time. Whatever works for your kids right now, folks, don't stress.
That's it. I think that's the key.
And just okay. And then the night before all the homework is due, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have 20 minutes to do this paper and then 20 minutes.
Right. That mad crunch. But yeah, I try not to make it stressful. And, one of my friends just said, they'll be fine when they go back. Don't kill yourself and kill them now if they don't want to do a sheet of homework.
Well, we finally decided on how we're grading today. We got told, yesterday we got told how we're grading.
Right.
Now we know that it's not going to kill her. She's not going to lose her AB honor roll because of this.
Good. And I hope that makes her feel a little better, because our kids are under enough just stress being alone without their friends. So they definitely don't need that added grade.
Well, in our situation, unfortunately, a couple of weeks before lockdown happened, a little girl in Riley's class who was her best friend passed away suddenly.
Oh, no.
And at 7 years old.
Oh, no.
So our teacher has really taken a step back because of these fragile children. And now them being, Riley said, yes, she's agreeing that Paisley went to heaven. But, the teacher was really softening the classroom. And she's continuing to work on that. And then to build these kids up. The little girl's parents actually went to the school last week and dropped off bracelets that say Paisley Grace on them.
Oh,
And they made one for every kid in the class
oh,
and added them to the kids' homework packs. So, folks, we're going to come back in September, August, October, whenever we come back. But we're going to come back, and we're going to be able to advocate even stronger because teachers are going to see these changes that we're making.
yes.
And they're going to say, you're right. I found that this doesn't work. We're going to set up like this. So as much as I hate this quarantine, I think it's going to bring about real change in how our children are educated, especially.
Yes.
So I'm eager to see when it happens, folks. I know we all are. It's coming. I promise. We just got to wait this out a little bit longer.
That's right. That's right. And I think I look and we've been at it. She's over a month here in Massachusetts, and it's gone, the tough days, but it's gone by fairly quickly. And, the weather's turning nicer. So I think, we can all get outside a little bit, at least up here in the Northeast, although it's going to snow 4 inches tomorrow night here. But we'll get out and make snowmen. As long as it's not raining and cold, snow is fine.
And like I said, folks, the dollar store has great little science kits. Our teacher told us that if I can take pictures of her doing the experiment or video, she will actually count it to some of her grades. So my AB Honor Roll student will stay AB Honor Roll student.
That's great. Yeah, get creative. Do some things you might normally
I have 2 now. Yes, Riley, you have 2 now.
What a good girl Riley is.
So everyone, thank you for joining us. Dennis, thank you so much. Next week, we are going to see Bridget and end our advocacy week. I've really enjoyed having you. I know people have enjoyed listening to us. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Remember, we have our parent support group at Ask an Autism Parent. We have the Lakikid page where you can find our videos, past videos. If you want to look for Bridget's video from last week or Dennis's video from week 1, they're all on our Facebook page. If you have any questions, just let us know. Of course, I'm in group all the time. Just ask and I will be there. If you need to be hooked up with an advocate, PM me, let me know, and I will see where we can find. Dennis and Bridget have kind of an idea of where to look in different areas.
We could be a good starting point to help, at least. We'll be happy to. So, yeah, definitely. So
reach out, guys, now if you're struggling, because we're going through such a difficult time. We don't need to compound it. So thank you all for joining us. I'll see you next Thursday. Stay safe. And remember, just take a time out if you have to. As long as your child is safe, then you can take a time out and come back when you're ready. And then nobody gets hurt. Everyone calms down, and your kids actually learn coping mechanisms by watching you.
There we go. Yep.
Dennis, you were saying when you took off, you rethought and went home.
Exactly.
And they learned that it's okay, but you got to come back and you got to fix it.
Right. It was a good teaching moment. Hopefully it sticks with me.
Exactly. This is a time for us to focus on teaching things that the education system can't teach. It really is. Those communication skills, those coping skills, those life skills. Thank you, Riley. I love you. I'll be down in a minute.
I have to get my daughters on here next week, not for next, but I should have got them on here talking me up.
Hey, you know what? It's fun. She just started and she's doing an amazing job. And it's a different way for her to learn. And if you are looking at your kids getting Facebook, know that they actually have a children's version of Facebook Messenger. So it blocks unwanted requests. Those guys who try and slide into your inbox, folks, it blocks them. But it blocks a lot of what people can send you. So it's very PG. So if you're looking at a Facebook for your child, I suggest the children's version of Messenger because it's so easy to use. Yep.
Again.
Thank you, Riley.
Another endorsement.
Everyone have a great night. Dennis, you have a great night. And remember, empower, support, and educate. Bye.
Bye bye.